Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation here in Spain. And with COVID-19 infections on the rise around the country, various autonomous communities have announced that they are going to stop their de-escalation plans. But more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel by buying merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your continuing support. Now let's get into the news, and as I said, COVID-19 infections around the country continue to rise, especially among younger generations. As we can see here, infections among young people continue to soar to 204.16 points. Infections among the younger population have soared in the last week. Spain has returned to high risk, and the cumulative incidence rate, that is, the number of cases diagnosed per 100,000 inhabitants in the last 14 days, reached 204.16 points on Monday, up from 152.82 last Friday. For a week now, the ministry headed by Carolina Darias has included a breakdown of the 14-day incidence by age group and autonomous community, with the highest rate, 640.13 cases per 100,000 inhabitants, among young people aged between 20 and 29 years, followed by those aged between 12 and 19 years, which reached 584.34 points. However, this incidence rate has not been reflected in the number of hospitalizations. And let's hope that continues to be the case, that the hospital system doesn't collapse like it has done on various occasions over the last 18 months. Now, one of the main reasons for the increase in infections among the younger generations here in Spain is the fact that they haven't been vaccinated. And as we can see here, only 5 autonomous communities have opened up COVID vaccination to all 20-year-olds. COVID is taking a toll on young people, and the accumulated incidence rate at 14 days for people in their 20s is already 3 times the Spanish average. This group and adolescents are the most unprotected because they have barely had access to the vaccine, and despite the spike in infections they are suffering, it is not yet time for mass vaccination. Only 5 regions, Catalonia, the Balearic Islands, the Canary Islands, Navarra and Castilla-La Mancha, and the 2 autonomous cities have begun to vaccinate young people between the ages of 16 or 18 and 29. The others continue to focus on vaccinating the 30 to 39 age group, and only Extremadura, the Valencian community and Galicia have made time to inoculate adolescents who are going to study abroad next year. So a definite sense of urgency in some autonomous communities here in Spain to start vaccinating these younger generations, but in other autonomous communities it doesn't seem to be a priority. Now, Spain's chief health officer and face of the coronavirus here in Spain, Fernando Simón, has said that we are in a very complicated situation in terms of transmission. The director of the Health Alerts and Emergencies Coordination Centre, Fernando Simón, said at the press conference that thanks to vaccination against COVID-19, we are managing to greatly reduce lethality, ICU occupancy and hospital occupancy in our country, and we are protecting the most vulnerable who may suffer more serious conditions. Right now we are in a complicated situation in terms of transmission, but at least it is not being reflected as yet, and we hope that this situation is maintained in terms of the parameters of severity, said Simón. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this increase in COVID cases here in Spain is leading some autonomous communities to rethink their de-escalation plans. As we can see here, Navarra, Extremadura and the Balearic Islands, the last communities to halt the de-escalation due to the increase in the number of cases. The much desired de-escalation is being interrupted due to the increase in cases of coronavirus that many communities have been experiencing in the last 15 days. Some, such as Navarra, the Balearic Islands and Extremadura, have begun the week with specific measures to halt these plans to open up. Fear of the Delta variant, initially known as the Indian variant, and the soaring incidence among young people are behind these decisions. Other communities have not taken concrete measures, but have already shown their concern about the increase in cases and their readiness to take action as soon as necessary. So, there we go. Seems fairly clear after reading a story like that Spain's autonomous communities are preparing more rules, regulations and restrictions in order to stop the spread of COVID-19 around the country. Now let's have a look at a summary of the health situation in Spain. We can see that the accumulated incidence rate is now up to 204. There are still currently 2,723 people hospitalized around the country with COVID, and there are 616 COVID patients in ICUs. If we have a look at Spain's main COVID hotspot, Catalonia, we can see that the incidence rate there is up to 439. And when it comes to vaccinations, we can see that just over 40% of the population have completed their COVID-19 vaccination, and just under 56% of the population have received at least 1 dose. Now, police around the country are still working overtime when it comes to handing out fines to people that break COVID-19 rules and regulations. And as we can see see here, police have imposed more than 100 fines in Benidorm alone for not respecting the security measures against COVID-19. The advance of vaccination, together with the summer holidays and the end of the obligatory use of masks outdoors, has brought with it a kind of relaxation of security measures against the coronavirus, especially among young people and in tourist areas of the country. Benidorm is a clear example. This weekend, the police have imposed more than 100 sanctions in this town, where there have been many botellones on the beach and where crowds, both during the day and night, have been a constant. Crowds where, in addition, the use of masks was not respected when the distance between people was less than 1.5 meters. And I must admit I did notice a big police presence when I was in Benidorm a few weeks ago. And again, that problem of botellones or beach drinking parties rearing its ugly head. Now, Spain's controversial Sexual Freedom Act finally got the okay yesterday, and it was passed after more than a year of stalling due to differences in the coalition government. Equality Minister Irene Montero has scored a new victory. The Council of Ministers approved the law on sexual freedom, known as the Only Yes is Yes law, the flagship law and the main commitment of the Ministry of Equality. And it does so just a week after giving the green light to the law for the real and effective equality of trans people and for the guarantee of LGTBI rights, which also came out of her department. 2 consecutive laws that have generated countless tensions between the government's partners. In the background, the fight for the banner of feminism and equality between the PSOE party and Unidas Podemos. So a new law there that took more than a year to get through the parliament because of the differences in opinion between the coalition government partners. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Pablo: bilingual education is an effing sham indeed. I moved here with my family from the UK in 2004, and my mum put us in a bilingual school so that we didn't lose touch with the English language. Turns out we only had 2 subjects in English and science, and that was in sexto de primaria. Secondary and bachillerato were completely in Spanish. In uni, one of my mates went to a proper bilingual school, he's half British too, and not a great example of that type of education either. Everything done in this country is half-assed, and the youth understandably flee the country looking for a better formation and opportunities elsewhere. Ley del mínimo esfuerzo and it's not my problem are the main attitude, and I'm frustrated and fed up, but I feel powerless and don't know what to do. Yeah, Pablo, thanks for the comment, and unfortunately there are a lot of people in this country that feel exactly the same way as you, fed up, powerless, and don't know what to do. We saw yesterday that the bilingual education system here in Spain is being questioned, with various schools deciding to drop out of the program, and one educator called it a sham, and you obviously agree with his words. So I don't know what the future of this bilingual education program is here in Spain, but I hope they can sort the problems out, because the world is becoming very, very competitive, and if young people in this country don't speak more than one language, they might be in for a bit of a shock. One here from Peanut Butter in the Armpits: hi Stu, Barcelona resident here. Tourists are back and prices are still sky high. I just came back from Tenerife and even tourist prices there are a joke compared to day-to-day prices in Catalonia. Yeah, Peanut Butter, thanks for the comment. And I think we spoke about this yesterday, that one of the reasons there were so many anti-tourism groups around before the pandemic was because of increasing prices in cities like Barcelona. A lot of rental accommodation in cities like Madrid and Barcelona were turned into tourist rentals, meaning that the prices went up and people had trouble finding a place to live. Platforms like Airbnb exacerbated this problem, especially in the more central parts of those cities, and it meant that a lot of young people couldn't afford to live in those parts of the city. The situation, of course, changed last year due to the pandemic, meaning that a lot of those tourist flats changed back to traditional types of rentals, but with tourism again increasing, I imagine that the problem is on the way back. And you're right, the cost of living in places like the Canary Islands, even in the tourist areas, is a lot cheaper than some of the big cities here on mainland Spain. One here from Ian: they are all watching what happens in England. Thankfully, despite the rises in COVID, Boris has finally decided we must learn to live with COVID. Vaccine certification also written off because fraud makes it unworkable. Ian, thanks for the comment, and that was a big news story yesterday when Boris Johnson announced that the country is finally going to end COVID restrictions as of the 19th of July, I believe. And there are a lot of differing opinions on Mr. Johnson's decision. I think he has decided to follow Singapore, who have also recently said that they are going to try to live with the virus. So time will tell if the Johnson decision is a good one or one of the biggest mistakes of all time. One here from Ed: the problem for monolingual Castilian speakers learning foreign languages might be more fundamental. I have seen it suggested that the limited range of sounds in Castilian Spanish makes it very hard for them to hear the nuanced sound in many foreign languages, a problem that Portuguese native speakers do not have. This is said to contribute to the problems they have in picking up foreign languages. Can't say this is 100% right, but ask a Castilian speaker to say crisps, and you might see what the issue is. Yeah, thanks for the comment, and that might be one of the problems that people in this country have when it comes to learning foreign languages, the limited number of vowels. In the Spanish language there are only 5 vowel sounds as we know, a, e, I, o, u, and in Portuguese, as you mentioned there are a lot more vowel sounds. In fact, for me, one of the most difficult things about learning Portuguese is all those different sounds. However, I don't think it's the only reason. I think there are other factors that influence the way people learn foreign languages in this country. For example, the way they are taught in schools and the limited exposure that a lot of people have to the second language. And I also think that there's a cultural aspect in there as well that stops people learning a second language well. And I will ask a few local people this weekend to say the word crisps. One here from Debbie. Hola Stuart, I see a lot of comments from people in California. Just wondering why so many Californians are keen to visit and or live in Spain. I myself have been there 6 times and recently lived in Barcelona for a year. I just returned last September due to my visa being up and COVID. But I'm still making plans to return. I wonder what it is about Spain that captures the hearts of so many. The Spanish couldn't understand why I would prefer to live in Spain to California. But I think Spain offers us the chance to live in a way that prioritizes quality of life over work. California is a beautiful place, but people in Spain really live, and that quality of life is what brings me back again and again. Saludos desde Los Angeles. Yeah, Debbie, thanks for the comment, and I have also noticed a lot of comments from people from California recently. And you may be right, Spanish people do seem to look at life differently, especially when it comes to work. A lot of people here do seem to prioritize living over working, and that might not be the case in the United States. And I think also that when you come from a place like California, there's a big Spanish influence there as well, and maybe that triggers people's curiosity to find out what the origins of that influence are. And I don't think we should overlook the influence of writers like Ernest Hemingway or James A. Michener when it came to putting ideas about Spain into people's heads. So whatever the reason, a lot of people in the United States have a fascination about this country. And finally, one here from Ben. I'm genuinely jealous of your garden. We've been here searching for a house with a garden for ages. It's basically impossible where we are. Have settled for something near some green spaces, but it's not the same. Yeah, Ben, thanks for the comment, and that is one of the big problems that a lot of people have when they come to live in Spain, trying to find a decent house, because as we know, Spanish cities are not famous for houses. No problems to find a flat or an apartment, but when it comes to finding a place with a garden, for example, it can be difficult. And I must admit that we were lucky to find this place, and the price was also quite reasonable, but we had to move 17 kilometers away from the center of Madrid to find it. When we bought this house, not many people were doing that, but today the situation has completely changed, and I even read earlier today that it's almost impossible to find a house anywhere in the Madrid community at the moment. So I do consider myself lucky to live where I live. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the video out as you normally do. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.